Picture this: a wealthy CEO boards a flight, eager for peace until he spots a woman sobbing beside his assigned seat. His first instinct: switch seats. But something about her stops him. He hesitates. And that one small pause sets off a chain of events neither of them could have imagined. What happens when a man used to control meets a stranger who makes him feel for the first time in years? His 8-year-old daughter looks up at him and says just 7 words that stun him. "You always taught me to be kind." What happens next will shatter everything you think you know about success, pain, and the power of a child's wisdom. This is the story of a man who built an empire but lost his soul. A young woman in so much pain that she can't stop crying at 35,000 feet, and a little girl about to pull off the most unexpected healing you've ever seen. But here's the real kicker: the one who changes everything isn't who you'd expect. Have you ever wondered what it really takes to save a life? Not with money, not with power, but with something so simple that most adults have forgotten how to do it. What if I told you that in the next 30 minutes, you'll witness a change so profound, it'll alter how you see every stranger you meet on the street? What if the most powerful moment happens when a child draws a picture that reminds 2 adults what it means to be human? This is not just a story about a flight from New York to San Francisco. It's the story of 3 souls who boarded as strangers, carrying wounds they thought would never heal. But when they landed, something extraordinary happened. It started with a tissue, continued with a drawing, and ended in a miracle no one saw coming. Are you ready to discover what happens when an 8-year-old girl decides that 2 broken adults need each other more than their pain? The alarm buzzed at 4:47 a.m., just like every morning for the past 3 years. Looking out over Central Park. But Ethan Blake's penthouse overlooked Central Park. But he never watched the sunrise anymore. No time for beauty when you're busy building walls. At 38, Ethan ran a tech empire worth $2.3 billion. Blake Innovations revolutionized cloud computing, employed over 15,000 people across 6 countries, and was named to Fortune's 40 Under 40 list twice in a row. His office took up the entire top floor of a Manhattan skyscraper with floor-to-ceiling windows, Italian marble, and views that left visitors breathless. But success, as Ethan had learned the hard way, can be the loneliest achievement over 3 years. 2 months, and 16 days. That's exactly how long it's been since Rebecca died in that senseless intersection crash. A drunk driver ran a red light at 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday while she was heading home from book club. It's been 3 years since their house echoed with her laughter. 3 years since he kissed anyone goodbye. It's been 3 years since he allowed himself to feel anything deeper than the safe, predictable rhythm of quarterly earnings and board presentations. He didn't miss the irony. His company specialized in connections, cloud systems linking people across continents, platforms that brought families closer and made the world feel smaller. But he himself had become an island surrounded by an ocean of his own making. "Dad, will you come to my art show next week?" Lily's voice cut through the fog in his mind as they navigated the crowded corridors of Terminal 4 at JFK Airport. 8 years old, with her mother's honey eyes and a heart that seemed too big for her little body. She inherited the gift of seeing into people's souls from her mom, even though Ethan had tried his best to become invisible, even to her. "We'll see. Sweetheart, I've got that deal closing in Singapore and the board meeting." And the response was the same as always. Work was safe. Work had boundaries. Work couldn't sneak into your chest and rearrange your organs every time you let yourself care. Lily nodded with the resigned patience of a kid who'd learned not to push too hard. Her small fingers squeezed his hand, a tiny anchor in the storm of his tightly controlled life. Somewhere, they have to. But watching kids adapt faster than adults, as he'd read somewhere, they have to. But watching his daughter adapt to her father's emotional absence was maybe the cruelest reminder of how much he'd lost. Not just Rebecca, but himself too. The business lounge smelled of expensive coffee and ambition. Ethan's assistant had booked their seats, first class to San Francisco, for another business acquisition about to close, another company merging into his growing empire. He told himself these trips were necessary, that building his legacy was what Rebecca would have wanted. But deep down, he knew the truth. Busy means numb. "Dad, look at everyone," Lily observed, pressing her nose against the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the runway. Everyone's got somewhere important to go. Ethan glanced up from his phone for a split second. Uh-huh. But Lily was right, as she often was. Everyone had somewhere important to go. Business people clutching briefcases like life rafts, families juggling strollers and dreams, elderly couples holding hands with the tenderness of decades, young folks with backpacks full of possibilities. The question Ethan couldn't silence was this: were they running towards something or away from it? So which one was he? As they settled into seats 12A and 12B, Ethan immediately pulled out his laptop. He needed to review the quarterly forecasts for the Asia-Pacific Division before his morning meeting in Silicon Valley. Numbers were clean. Numbers made sense. Numbers didn't cry, laugh, or break your heart in the grocery aisle when a song reminded you of someone gone. Lily pressed her face against the small plane window, watching the ground crew load luggage with the delight of someone who still believed the world was full of wonders. She pulled out her worn sketchbook, a gift from Rebecca before she passed, and started drawing with the focus of a master artist, even if it was just stick figures and rainbow houses. "What are you drawing, sweetheart?" Ethan asked, trying to put some warmth in his voice. He'd been practicing this showing interest, being present, all the things the grief counselor had recommended before he stopped going to sessions. "Something unexpected," Lily said, not taking her eyes off her work. "For someone who needs it." A simple phrase like that lodged in Ethan's chest like a splinter. When had his 8-year-old daughter become more attuned to others' needs than he was? When had she learned to treat empathy like a gift waiting to be given? Of course, she learned it from Rebecca. Everything good in Lily came from her mom. The kindness, the intuition, the way to see through people, the way to hide pain inside. Ethan contributed the business smarts, the analytical thinking, and the drive to succeed. But Rebecca gave their daughter her soul. 3 gates away, Samantha Lee sat on a worn plastic chair that's seen decades, clutching a useless tissue in her hand. At 26, she looked both older and younger than her years older from the pain-etching lines around her eyes that shouldn't be there yet. Younger from the loss stripping away the confidence most adults wear like armor. 2 weeks. It's been exactly 14 days since she watched her mom take her last breath in room 314, Bed B at Mount Sinai Hospital. It's been 14 days since the machine stopped beeping and silence took over. It's been 14 days since she became an orphan. Though the word seems too small, too childish for the magnitude of her loss, Maria Esperanza Lee was everything to Sam Mom. Dad, best friend, cheerleader, and moral compass, all wrapped in one endlessly loving, optimistic woman who raised her daughter alone after Sam's father disappeared when she was 3. They were a 2-person team against the world, living in a cramped apartment above a grocery store, sharing late-night dreams over tea and turning every holiday into a celebration, despite having more love than money. "Mom," her mom had whispered in one of their last conversations, "you have the ability to see into people's hearts. Promise me you won't let this world make you hard. Promise me you'll keep looking." But how could Sam keep looking when her vision was blurred by tears? They wouldn't stop. How could she help others heal when she felt like she was bleeding from every pore? Her social work degree from Columbia now meant nothing. All those theories on grief stages and coping mechanisms, all the case studies and therapy interventions, they all crumbled like paper when faced with the reality that every morning, the world no longer had the one person who made everything matter. San Francisco wasn't really an ideal destination. It was an escape. Her cousin Elena offered a couch, a temporary landing spot while Sam figured out how to rebuild her life from the rubble. Maybe she'd find a job at a non-profit, lose herself in other people's problems instead of drowning in her own. Maybe 3,000 miles between coasts would somehow create enough distance from the memories for her to breathe again. The boarding announcement crackled over the terminal speakers like a prayer reaching the lost. "Flight 447 to San Francisco, now boarding. Welcome all passengers." Sam stood on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Her bag carried the fragments of her old life. Childhood photo albums, her mom's favorite earrings, the last birthday card Maria gave her with shaky handwriting that read, "To my beautiful daughter. You have a gift for seeing hearts. Don't ever lose that. Always love." Mom. She'd lost it. How could she see into others' hearts when her own was shattered into pieces where she couldn't tell where the pain ended and began? The line moved forward with the slow inevitability of grief. Business travelers checked their phones impatiently. Families huddled together with kids and dreams. But Sam felt detached from it all, walking through the world like a ghost who'd forgotten how to haunt properly. Seat 12C. The gate agent smiled as she scanned her boarding pass, as if a middle seat was a gift instead of purgatory. Sam had hoped for a window seat where she could curl up against the curve and pretend to be invisible. Instead, she found herself sandwiched between a man in an expensive charcoal suit radiating control like he was shouting CEO and his daughter, a little girl with the sharpest eyes Sam had ever seen. The businessman was typing furiously on his laptop before takeoff, his fingers flying across the keys with precision, diving into a digital world more comfortable than the real one. Meanwhile, his daughter studied Sam with the boundless curiosity only kids have. No judgment, just pure observation. "Hi," the little girl whispered as Sam fumbled with her seatbelt. "I like your bracelet. It's really pretty." Sam glanced down at the silver bracelet on her wrist, her mom's most treasured possession, passed down from her mom in Puerto Rico. Each charm told a story: a tiny book for Maria's love of reading, a heart for her endless love, a small cross for the faith that got her through single motherhood and cancer treatments. "Thank you," Sam managed to say, her voice just a whisper. It's from my mom. It's from my mom. She could see the name Ethan Blake, CEO, embossed on his leather briefcase next to his laptop. The first time she looked up since sitting down, he met her red-rimmed eyes, the clutched tissues in her pale hands, the unmistakable posture of someone drowning in fresh grief, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. And Sam could practically read his thoughts. "Great. A crying woman. That's exactly what I need for a 5-hour flight." She'd seen that look before at the grocery store when she broke down in the cereal aisle, at the bank when she started sobbing, trying to close her mom's account, at the post office when forwarding mail suddenly became the world's hardest task. People don't know what to do with such overwhelming grief. That makes them uncomfortable, reminding them of their own death and the possibility of their own losses. "Excuse me," Ethan said to Nancy Moore, the flight attendant who was helping passengers stow their luggage. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to solving problems quickly and quietly. "Can we switch seats? My daughter needs me." The little girl's voice was soft but carried a quiet power that could stop conversations and change life courses. "You always taught me to be kind to people who are sad." Those words hit the cabin like a physical force. Ethan's hand froze on the keyboard. Sam felt something shift in the air around them, like the universe had just recalibrated a bit. Even Nancy paused in her work, sensing something important unfolding in row 12. Ethan stared at his daughter like he was seeing her for the first time. These were Rebecca's words through Lily's voice, the philosophy that had guided his wife through life, the belief that kindness was never wasted, that everyone deserved to be seen and valued. Rebecca never walked past a homeless person without stopping. Rebecca brought soup to sick neighbors and remembered everyone's birthdays. Rebecca taught their daughter that love was an action, not just a feeling. Sam watched the struggle play out on the businessman's face, the desire to retreat battling something deeper that his daughter had just awakened with her simple truth. Ethan slowly, carefully closed his laptop. The flight attendant smiled and moved on. The businessman settled back into his seat, and Sam realized that for the first time in 2 weeks, she wasn't alone in her pain. Have you ever witnessed the moment a child's innocent wisdom completely shatters an adult's carefully built walls when 7 simple words from an 8-year-old can change the course of not 1, but 3 lives? What happens next will show you the extraordinary power that emerges when we choose connection over comfort, when we let kids remind us of what it truly means to be human. Stay with us, because that's where the real story begins. As Flight 447 took off from the runway, Sam felt something crack open in her chest like an eggshell. Maybe it was leaving the ground, the last place her mom's feet had touched. Maybe it was the end of everything, the physical distance growing between her and all that was familiar. Or maybe grief just has its own timeline. And this moment, at 35,000 feet above the earth, was when her carefully held composure finally decided to give way. At first, the tears fell silently, the kind of crying that tries to stay invisible to respect the social contract that we shouldn't burden strangers. But grief doesn't follow social contracts. Grief has its own weight and weather, and soon. Sam's shoulders shook under the weight of everything she'd been holding since that horrific morning at the hospital. She clapped a hand over her mouth, trying to stifle the sounds even as they escaped. The businessman next to her, Ethan, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his body language screaming discomfort. She could feel his tension radiating like heat from a fire, the human reaction to unfiltered emotions. This was exactly what she feared becoming, that person, the one who made others uneasy, who reminded them life could shatter unexpectedly, who carried wounds so visible they couldn't be ignored or politely overlooked. But sweet, perceptive Lily reached into her little purple backpack, her small hands moving with the purposeful determination of someone on a mission. She pulled out a pack of travel tissues, the kind with cheerful flowers on the packaging, and handed it to Sam without a word. "Thank you, sweetie," Sam whispered, accepting it with a watery smile. The simple kindness of it, this child's instinctive response to another's pain, almost undid her all over again. "My mom used to cry too," Lily said matter-of-factly, her voice carrying the wisdom that comes from witnessing pain firsthand before heaven called. "Dad says it's okay because crying means you loved someone a whole lot." Those words hung in the recycled air of the plane like a blessing and a challenge. Ethan's hands went completely still on the keyboard. When had he said that memories flooded back the early days after Rebecca's diagnosis, explaining to a 5-year-old why Mom was so sick, why the house felt different, why Dad's eyes were red even when he smiled? He'd forgotten. He'd said that. He'd forgotten so much about those early days, when they were blurred by doctor appointments and insurance forms and the desperate hope that somehow science could outrun the inevitable. "Is that why you're crying?" Lily continued, her child's intuition cutting through all the adult complexity to the simple truth beneath. "Because you love someone a whole lot," Sam nodded, hardly believing her own voice. How was this little girl, the daughter of a stranger, seeing so clearly what the rest of the world felt invisible? "My mom died 3 years ago," Lily said gently, as if sharing the most natural fact in the world. "But Dad doesn't cry anymore. I think maybe he's forgotten." That loss hit Ethan's chest like a dart finding its target, from a child's mouth. When had his 8-year-old daughter become more emotionally intelligent than him? When did the little girl learn to handle pain more gracefully than the adults around her? Sam looked at Ethan with new eyes, seeing through the expensive suit and the confidence of a CEO to the carefully controlled pain beneath. It's hard when your person goes to heaven. Your person. Such a simple phrase. But it captured everything, the relationship that defined you, the person who shaped your days, the one who made you who you are. Such a simple phrase. But it captured everything, the relationship that defined you, the person who shaped your days and made you who you are. Sam's person was her mom. But looking at this little girl, she realized that sometimes your people live on in the love they planted in others. An hour into the flight, the chaos began. Not the kind of turbulence that shakes the plane and has passengers gripping armrests, but the emotional kind that happens when wounded souls recognize each other in the narrow aisles of human connection. Harold Green, the middle-aged man in the suit across the aisle, had been glancing over with irritation for the past 20 minutes. His laptop was open to what looked like financial spreadsheets. His Bluetooth earpiece couldn't drown out Sam's occasional sniffling, and his patience was clearly at its limit. "Some of us are trying to work here," he muttered, loud enough to carry across the aisle in 3 rows in both directions. "Maybe take it to the bathroom if you can't control yourself." Those words landed on Sam like a physical slap. She'd heard variations of that sentiment before. At the grocery store when she collapsed in front of the cereal her mom used to buy. At the DMV when updating her emergency contacts sparked a sob. At the coffee shop, where the barista looked at her tears like they were a personal inconvenience. But something extraordinary happened next, something that surprised everyone, including Ethan. He felt anger rising in his chest, not the cold, controlled anger of boardrooms, but something fiercer, more protective. This wasn't anger at Sam for crying, but rage at a world that had grown so disconnected, so uncomfortable with authentic human emotions that it treated pain like a character flaw instead of the price of deep love. "She's grieving," Ethan said quietly, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of a man who's commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals. But there was something else in his tone, something warmer, more human than his usual demeanor. "Show some compassion." Harold scoffed, with the voice of someone who'd confused cynicism with sophistication. "It's not my problem. I don't even know her." "Actually," Ethan continued, his voice growing stronger and more convincing with each word, "it is all of our problem when we stop caring about each other's pain, when we lose the ability to see strangers as fellow humans deserving of basic dignity. We lose our own humanity in the process." Those words surprised him even as he said them. When had he become so philosophical? When had he started caring about strangers again? When had he remembered the difference between existing and living? Sam looked at him through tear-filled eyes, truly seeing him for the first time. Here was a man who lived in a world of power and privilege, who could have easily sided with Harold, who had every reason to want her quiet and invisible. Instead, he was defending her right to grieve, her right to take up space with her pain. "You don't have to defend me," she said softly, her voice full of gratitude and maybe a touch of surprise. "I've gotten used to being invisible. No one should get used to being invisible." Lily chimed in with the fierce conviction of someone who never learned that her opinions didn't matter. "Everyone deserves to be seen." That's what Mom used to say. Once again, Rebecca's wisdom flowed through their daughter's voice. Ethan felt something shift inside his chest, not breaking, but breaking open. A crack in the wall he'd built around his heart, letting in the first rays of light he'd felt in 3 years. Nancy Moore, the flight attendant who'd been watching the exchange while pretending to organize the drink cart, found herself blinking back her own tears. In her 15 years of flying, she'd seen plenty of human dramas unfold at 35,000 feet. But there was something different about this moment, something that reminded her why she got into this job in the first place. Not for the travel or flexible schedule, but for the privilege of witnessing humanity in all its messy, beautiful complexity. Mrs. Cora Dawson, the elderly woman behind them, leaned forward. 40 years of teaching had given her an eye for souls in crisis. "Sweetie," she said to Sam. "What's your name, Samantha?" "Sam." "I'm Cora. Sharing pain is harvesting pain." These folks seem like good listeners. Ethan found himself leaning in. What happened? The question unleashed the floodgates. Sam told them about Maria, her mom, her best friend, her whole world. About the pancreatic cancer diagnosis, the 6 months they fought together, the last morning when Sam held her hand as she slipped away. "She spent her final months preparing me for a world without her. She showed me everything except how to survive without her love. I don't know how to make it in this world without her. She was my whole family." Lily patted Sam's hand. "You're not floating anymore. You've got us." Ethan looked at his daughter, truly seeing her wisdom for the first time. "I used to think," he said slowly, "that if I didn't let myself feel the pain, it would hurt less. After Rebecca died, I shut down, thinking I was protecting myself, protecting Lily." He looked at his daughter with new eyes. "But maybe I was just teaching her that love isn't worth the risk of loss." "But you did love," Sam said gently. "Does that mean something?" "Does it?" Ethan asked. "I couldn't cry for her. I haven't visited her grave. I just worked and pretended the pain would fade." "Pain isn't a problem to fix," Mrs. Cora said gently. "It's love with nowhere to go. And deep love doesn't fade. It transforms. Have you ever seen the exact moment when 3 strangers become more than the sum of their individual pains? When a child's wisdom, a woman's courage to be vulnerable, and a man's decision to feel again create something none of them could find alone. What happens next will show you how the smallest acts of connection can lead to the deepest transformations. Stay with us because the most powerful moment is still coming." "Sweetie," she said to Sam. "What's your name, Samantha?" "Sam. Sam. I'm Cora. And I can tell you from 7 decades on this planet that shared pain is harvested pain." These folks here seem like good listeners. Ethan found himself nodding, surprising everyone, including himself. What happened? The question opened the floodgates. Sam told them about her mom, the late-night talks, how Maria fought cancer with grace and humor the last morning when she passed while Sam held her hand. She told them about the emptiness of the apartment they'd shared, about having no siblings, no dad in the picture, about feeling utterly disconnected from the world. "I don't know how to survive without her," Sam whispered. "She was my whole family." Lily reached out and patted Sam's hand with the air of someone much older. "You're not alone now. You've got us." Ethan looked at his daughter, the one he'd been so focused on protecting that he forgot to really see. When did she get so wise? When did she learn to comfort with such natural grace? I used to think, Ethan said slowly, the words coming from a deep, long buried place, that if I didn't let myself feel the pain, it would hurt less. After my wife died, I just shut down, thinking I was protecting myself, protecting Lily. He paused, looking at his daughter with fresh eyes. But I think maybe I was just teaching her that love isn't worth the risk of loss. Sometimes the deepest lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. What this little girl is about to show these two adults will change everything they thought they knew about healing. Stay with us. You won't believe what happens next. As the plane began its descent into San Francisco, Lily pulled out her sketch pad. She'd been quietly drawing while the adults talked, her small hands creating something profound from the conversation swirling around her. "Sam," she said shyly, "I made this for you." The drawing was simple but extraordinary. A little girl holding hands with a woman who had angel wings, both smiling. But next to them, holding the little girl's other hand, was another figure, Sam, no longer alone. "That's you and your mom," Lily explained, her voice carrying the practical wisdom only kids possess. "But look, your mom is sending you to us. She doesn't want you to be alone." Sam stared at the drawing, and for the first time in 2 weeks, the tears weren't purely from grief. These were different tears, still painful but somehow healing. "How did you know?" she whispered. "My mom sends me things like this too," Lily said simply, "like the feeling to hand you tissues, and the feeling that Dad needs to remember how to be kind again." Ethan felt something crack in his chest, not breaking, but releasing. 3 years of careful control, 3 years of locked-down emotions, suddenly fracturing like a dam that could no longer hold back the flood. "I haven't cried since Rebecca's funeral," Ethan admitted, his voice hoarse from the held-back emotion. "I thought being strong meant not feeling. But watching you, Sam, and listening to Lily, I realize I wasn't strong. I was hiding." The confession hung in the recycled air like a prayer finally spoken. "It's okay, Dad," Lily said, climbing into his lap like she used to when she was smaller, before pain made him afraid of his own feelings. "Can you cry now? I won't fall apart." And he did. At 38, a Fortune 500 CEO, crying in seat 12A while his 8-year-old daughter hugged him and a stranger who'd become something more squeezed his hand in solidarity. Sam watched this powerful man crumble and rebuild in real time. She saw herself in his pain, but she also saw something else, the possibility of surviving this, of falling apart and not being destroyed, of finding a way forward that honored love instead of just enduring loss. "Your daughter," she whispered to Ethan, "she has an amazing gift. She inherited it from her mom." Ethan replied, really seeing Lily for the first time in years. Rebecca always saw the best in people, always helped anyone in pain. "Lily, in the kindness she showed me. Then she's still here," Sam said with sudden insight. "In Lily, in the kindness she showed me, in the way she brought you back to yourself." As the plane landed in San Francisco, something fundamental had changed. Not just geography, but the inner landscapes of 3 souls who'd been running from pain, from connection, from the messy beauty of being human. "Mrs. Cora leaned forward one last time as passengers started gathering their things. "Young man," she said to Ethan, "don't wait until it's too late to learn how to touch the world with your heart again." Ethan nodded, understanding flooding through him. He'd been so busy shielding himself from future loss that he'd missed every present moment. "Sam," he said as they stepped into the jet bridge, "I know this sounds strange, but my company has a community outreach department. We work with nonprofits, support programs for grieving families. If you're thinking of staying in San Francisco, I want I want to offer you a position." Sam paused, looking at him in disbelief. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Ethan replied. "I know you have a master's in social work. I know you understand pain in a way that could help others heal. And I know my daughter saw something in you that I completely trust." Lily beamed at them both. "Does that mean Sam can come to my art show next week?" Ethan laughed, his first real laugh in 3 years. "If she wants." Sam looked at the drawing still clutched in her hand, at the man who'd remembered how to feel, at the little girl who'd somehow orchestrated their healing with tissues and unshakable faith in the power of kindness. "I'd love to," she whispered. 6 months later, Ethan Blake stood in his office watching Lily and Sam work in the company's memorial garden below. They'd planted trees together, a place where anyone who'd lost loved ones could come to remember, to grieve, to heal. Sam had transformed the company's community outreach, developing programs for grieving kids and families. She'd found her purpose in the intersection of pain and passion, helping others through loss while learning to carry her own with grace. Ethan had learned to be present, truly present. He'd rearranged his priorities and discovered that success meant nothing without connection, not just to family, but to community, to acts of deep caring for strangers. "Dad," Lily burst into his office, "Sam and I planted sunflowers today. She said Mom would like them because they always turn toward the light." Ethan scooped his daughter up, holding her tight. Through the window, he could see Sam waving, and he waved back. 3 broken people had found wholeness in the most unexpected place, 35,000 feet above the ground in the sacred space where strangers become family. "She was right," he said to Lily. "Mom would love them. Rebecca would have loved what her passing created. Not just pain, but connections. Not just loss, but love multiplied. Not just endings, but beginnings none of them could have imagined." Sometimes the deepest journeys aren't about going somewhere, but about having the courage to sit with another's pain. Sometimes the strongest healers are 8-year-old girls who still believe in the profound simplicity of kindness. And sometimes the most wounded souls just need an outstretched hand to know they're not invisible. Flight 447 was supposed to take 5.5 hours, but the journey it started continues in everyone who chooses connection over isolation, compassion over indifference, presence over protection. Next time you're next to someone in pain, remember Lily's advice. Everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserves kindness. And sometimes in trying to heal others, we discover that we've healed ourselves too. This story reminds us that even the smallest act of kindness can ripple into something far greater than we imagined. What began as a simple meal shared in silence unfolded into a powerful message of dignity, gratitude, and human connection. Through her quiet courage and open heart, the waitress not only touched the life of one young man, but unknowingly inspired hundreds of others to honor her with their presence. If you felt moved by her story, consider showing your support. Sometimes, heroes don't wear uniforms, they wear aprons, carry trays, and smile through exhaustion. Let's lift her up, remind her she matters, and that compassion never goes unnoticed. To our brave waitress, keep being yourself. Your warmth has already changed more lives than you know. And perhaps your next step is simply to believe that you, too, deserve kindness in return. If stories like this one touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Touching Tales Hub. This is where everyday moments meet extraordinary grace and where your presence helps keep these stories alive. Thank you for watching and for being part of a community that still believes in the good.